He is Abraham's nephew, the son of Haran, his brother, who passed away, and he's the only relative of Abraham in Canaan that he took with him, and other than Sarah, of course. So he's an iconic figure. He's really a very, very important figure, and I'll tell you how. He's probably the biggest loser that's in the whole Torah. But Baruch Hashem, God turns it into a winner each time. Just like Yosef said to his brothers when they threw him in the pit afterwards at the end of the book, and they said, "You intended to do evil to me, but God intended it for good in order to accomplish." And this is exactly Lot. Give a little background. There's two kinds of losers, and there's a Yiddish expression for either one that I think is really good. There's two in Yiddish. There's a shlamazel and a shlemiel. And a shlamazel, it's actually their Hebrew words, shalo mazel. You know, mazel tov, people say mazel tov. So shalom mazel is someone who doesn't have mazel. He doesn't have any luck. And a shlemiel is shalom mi'el, is someone who doesn't have God. He doesn't have a God. And so how do we know the difference between the two? So they tell a story. Imagine you're in a restaurant and a waiter comes out with a piping hot bowl of soup. And he trips and he spills it onto the lap of one of the customers. So the customer is a shlamazel. And the waiter is a shlemiel. And so how do we see Lot's, I'll give you an example, a little background. How do we see the shlamazel of Lot turn bad into good? In last week's parsha in Lech Lecha, just after Abraham separated from Lot, remember at a certain point he said, we have too much wealth, the two of us. You know, Lot went with Abraham and Sarah to Egypt. It doesn't talk about that, but he did. And when Abraham got all this tremendous wealth from Pharaoh, because he saw it was a payoff, so he wouldn't be hurt, Lot also got. So when they came back to the land, they were both fabulously wealthy, tremendous amount of cattle and sheep and goats and servants. And to the point where Abraham told them, listen, this is, and they started fighting. Who had the right to graze here and who had the right to graze there. So they separated. And this was, by the way, the beginning of the undoing of Lot, this separation. This was very bad for Lot, very good for Abraham, and very bad for Lot. So what happens is Lot is minding his own business, milking a goat or picking a daisy or something, and suddenly 4 kings come in from the east, one of whom is Nimrod, the mighty king Nimrod, with 4 great armies, and they capture Lot among everything else in that whole area, among the king of Sodom and tremendous wealth, and they take it. They capture Lot. He's gone with his family, and obviously he's going to be held. He's going to be a slave when they go back to Mesopotamia, or wherever their different ones were from. So Avram hears about it, and he musters his militia. His household was not only a yeshiva of students and servants, but it was also a military camp. It's my theory that all the martial arts of the East really emanated from Abraham, and these were tremendous warriors. They have knowledge of use of the sword and physical fighting, and he had 318 of them, and they chased after, because to rescue his nephew, they chased after the 4 kings, caught them, divided themselves at night, and conquered them, and rescued Lot, rescued everybody, took them back, and came back on the way back to just outside the walls of Jerusalem. a place called Emek Shaveh, which means the depth of equality. And what happens now is Malchi Tzedek, the great Malchi Tzedek, one of the greatest people that ever lived in the history of the world, who is, the Medrash tells us, this is Shem, the son of Noah. He comes out with wine and bread to resuscitate these exhausted troops, and he gives Abraham a blessing. Now, this blessing is certainly one of the most, if not the most important blessing in the Torah, in the history of the world, because what he was doing at that moment is transferring the priesthood, because Malchi Tzedek was not only the king of Jerusalem, which the first king mentioned as king in the Torah, but he was also the priest of El Elyon, God Most High, the highest level of God that can be revealed. And he transferred the priesthood to Abraham through this blessing. And what happened, what this moment was, this was the moment of transition from 2,000 years of chaos, tohu, to 2,000 years of order and Torah happened at that moment. That was the beginning. That was the transfer. Shem was the last of the previous 2,000 years. Abraham was the first of the next 2,000 years. So look what happened here. The cause of Abraham racing after the kings was Lot. He was just this shlemazel, this guy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He gets captured. That's the cause of Abraham chasing after them, which is the cause of coming back to Jerusalem, which is the cause of getting the bracha, which changes the whole world. And it's really Lot who caused it, by just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So now, I've got a few notes here. And it's going to happen again right now. So that's the background on this. What happens in chapter 19, which is the third aliyah of the Parashat Vayera, which is the fourth parsha of the Torah. Rod, can I say something to you? Are you there? Is Rod there?
Yeah, yes, I'm right here.
I would like to dedicate this, if it's okay with you, to this learning, to a complete healing to Rabbi Avraham Greenbaum.
Yes, I agree. Amen.
Yeah. So Avraham Yeshua ben Esther Malka, whom we all love and appreciate, should have a complete healing, and let us say amen.
Amen, amen.
Okay. So now we're going to start the actual thing. Okay, so this is verse 19, chapter 19, verse 1 of the book of Genesis. V'yavo shnei hamalachim Sodoma be'erev v'lot yoshev b'shar Sodom. And the two angels came to Sodom, city of Sodom, at evening. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. So these two angels are two of the three angels that visited Abraham. The three angels were the three great archangels were Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Michael was the one who announced to Sarah that she was going to have a baby. Raphael came to heal Abraham from the brit, from the circumcision. And I think that Gabriel's real job was not there. He was there to help eat Avram's food. Avram fed them, and they ate his food, and that was an extraordinary thing. That was something that's unprecedented, because first of all, angels don't eat food. Second of all, what that was showing was that what Hashem was showing the angels and the world is that Avram is higher than the angels, that they should receive from him. Because there's a medrash that says when Adam sinned, originally Adam in the Garden of Eden received his food only from the hand of Hashem, only directly from God. But when he sinned, he was lowered. He then was fed by the angels, and it was an embarrassment for him. And here is the reverse. He's saying to show that Abraham, to some degree, made a tikkun, made a rectification on the sin of Adam. He feeds the angels, the opposite of what happened to Adam. So that's these two angels. So Michael, whose job was done, is gone. And now with the two angels you have, these two angels that came to Sodom, the city of Sodom in the evening, are Gabriel and Raphael. And Gabriel is there to destroy the cities. And Raphael is there to save Lot and his family. So, and Lot saw, okay. Vayar Lot, Vayakum likratom, Yishtachvu apayim arza. And Lot saw them and rose up to meet them, and he fell down on his face to the earth. So this is a big question altogether. What is Lot doing there? This is the gate of the city of Sodom. All we know is that Lot separated from Abraham and had his flocks in the area where it says his tents stretched out to the Sodom. But all of a sudden, he's sitting in the gate. He's living in Sodom. He has a house in Sodom. We don't ever hear about his servants or his cattle or his wealth anymore. He's now, I hate to use that expression, he's a sodomite. But he's an important one. He's sitting in the gate of the city. Who sits in the gate of the city are the elders. And you know the term ger b'sharecha, the ger in the gate. The ger, the non-Jewish person, the Gentile elder, who you were the first one, by the way, I told you this years ago already, sit in the gate when people have questions, and they're the judges. And it says in the Medrash that very day they appointed him judge. Now, what kind of a judge do you think the people of Sodom want? Do you think they want a Brett Kavanaugh? No. They want the guys who were trying to ruin Brett Kavanaugh. They want a crook. They want somebody they can manipulate. And that's Lot. They wanted their kind of judge. So anyhow, he rose up to meet them. He recognized that they're angels. He put his face to the ground, which is what's appropriate with an angel. I don't know even if it's a question of appropriate. It's something that's just going to automatically happen. The holiness and the power and the glory that comes out from the presence of these archangels is so great, a person automatically falls down on his face. And that's what he did. Verse 2, Vayomer, and he said, V'hine na Adonai, suru na el beit avdecha, v'lina v'rachza raglehem, v'hishmachtem, v'halachtem v'darchem. And he said to them, behold now, my lords, turn aside, I pray you, into the house of your servant, and sleep there overnight, and wash your feet, and then you'll rise up early in the morning, and you'll be on your way. So here you see he has a house. He doesn't have a tent. It's a bayit. It's a bayit. He has a house. So he has moved into Sodom, and he has moved out of the life of being a shepherd and into the city life. And remember what city this is. This is the most corrupt place in the world. And this is a problem. I don't think we say particularly that Lot was as corrupt as the people there, and was as evil, but he liked the evil. He was attracted to the evil. That's why he went there. And we see this today. We see this in America, in the world. People love evil. How many movies are about evil? Vampire movies, zombie movies, horror movies. People love this stuff. They're not necessarily evil themselves, but they like it. I think that was Lot. Although I think as time went on, and this is what does happen, he attracted the evil to himself too, and he and his family became really part of this. Okay. So V'yomru, and the angels answered him and said, Lo, Ki berachov nolin. We're gonna sleep outside in the white place, in the streets. V'yiftzar bam ma'od v'yisuru elav, and he urged them greatly, and they agreed to it. They turned into him. V'yavo el beito, and he entered into his house. V'yas lahem mishta, and he made for them a feast, a party. Umatzot afa, and he baked matzahs, unleavened bread. V'yochelu, and they ate. Now this is really amazing that they ate, because I just told you why they ate from Abraham, because Abraham, God was showing the angels and showing the whole world that Abraham is higher than the angels. Lot is not higher than the angels. Lot is lower. Lot's a low, despicable creature. So why did they eat? So this is my theory. But I think I didn't see anybody say this, but it's just so obvious. They were supposed to save Lot from destruction. And he really didn't deserve being saved from destruction. He was no good. His wife was no good. They talk about things. We know his wife's name by the way. Her name was Edis. It's not in the text, but it's in the oral tradition. So he was being saved by the merit of Abraham, because but that was not enough. They needed a mitzvah. They needed some good deed to justify saving them. And this was the good deed. That's why they ate, because to give him the mitzvah that would allow him to be saved, and they really only wanted to save him for the sake of Abraham, because he was his relative. Okay, verse 4. Terem yishkavu, before they lay down, va'anshe ha'ir, anshe Sodom, nasapu al habayit. The men of the city, even the men of Sodom, they surrounded the house. Menar ba'adzakin, from young and old, both young and old, kol ha'am mikotze, and all the people from every quarter. Some people from every aspect of this city surrounded the house. And this is an indication, this verse tells us that they were thoroughly evil. The people in the city were thoroughly evil from one end to the other. Everybody has a problem there. Verse 5, V'yikru el Lot, v'yomru lo, and they called to Lot and they said to him, Eya hanashim asher bahu elecha halayla. Where are the men that came into you this night? Hotziam Elenu v'nada otam. Bring them out to us that we may know them. Now I don't want to elaborate because there's kids in the room, but what they're saying, they want to know them in the biblical sense, like Adam knew Chava, like his wife. They wanted to have relations with them, and this is now. These are men. These are two men. This is what Sodom is known for, and this is what the word in English has been derivative from this place, means any unnatural relationships, and that's what they wanted. They were, what's the word? They were homosexual. That was it. That was the whole city. That's what this culture was. Verse 6, V'yetze alehem Lot ha'petcha, and Lot went out unto them to the door. V'hadelet sagar acharav, and he shut the door after him. This, by the way, this shows what kind of a house it was. This couldn't have been a tent, because a tent doesn't have a door like this door. And not only that, even if it did, they could come with a knife and just slash open the tent. This was not only a house, this was a big house. My theory is that what Lot had done when he separated from Abraham and saw that his uncle, his righteous uncle, wasn't looking at him anymore and was separated from him, I think he divested himself of his nomadic life, got rid of his servants, got rid of his cattle, sold them, amassed a great wealth by doing so, moved into Sodom, became a big shot there, and built or bought a very big, substantial house, a mansion even. And that's where they are now. So, and he said, and Lot said, Al na achai hareya, Don't do this, my brothers. Don't act so wickedly. Verse 8. Hine navli shtei banot. I have two daughters, asher lo yado ish, who have not known man. Hotzia na etchem alechem. I will let me bring them out to you. V'yas lahem katov be'enechem rak the anoshim ha'el al tasu davar. He says, let me bring out my two daughters to you and do to them what you see good in your eyes. Only to these two men, don't do anything. For ki al kain ba'u b'tzel karati, because as much as they have come under the shadow of my roof. Now this is a divine, this verse is the defining verse about Lot. You see who he is from this. I mean, can you conceive of anybody doing this? You know you've got a bloodthirsty mob, horrible people out there who are sexually crazed right now. And he's going to take his two daughters, who he says has not known men, which means they're undefiled. They're I'll use the V word. and he's going to send them out there just so his honor will not be soiled, because they came under his roof for his protection. It would be a dishonor to him if something happens to them. So rather than be dishonored, he's going to sacrifice literally the lives of his daughters. By the way, in this particular case, and all through the Torah, I think it's a very good practice to make a distinction. Who's saying what? Who is saying the narrative? Is it the Torah, or is it a person in the Torah? Who said that his daughters did not know man? The Torah didn't say that. Lot said that. It's very important to realize that Lot said that. And we can say that two things. First of all, how does Lot know? How does Lot know the chastity and the righteousness of his daughter? He's not righteous, and I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think his daughters are righteous either. I think he's wrong. I think they were engaged to two men who lived in Sodom, to two Sodomites. They were now Sodomites. Who knows for how long? We don't really know how long they had lived there already. For him to say that they were undefiled and still as pristine as the day they were born, I think it's a joke. I think he's wrong, and he might know he's wrong. He might be lying to them to get them to do what he wants, or he just might be deceived by his daughters. After all, they are engaged. You know, we have a thing in Orthodox Jewish tradition that a marriage has two stages. One is the engagement, which is called erusin. And the other is the actual marriage itself, the consummation of the marriage under the chuppah, under so forth, and that's called nesuim. They had it in those days too. This is an ancient custom, but it's a righteous thing because the betrothed couple don't see each other. It's really all a matter of a lot of it is done for legal and financial reasons. The time to make a determination who's going to give this money to the dowry to this one, what's going to come from this side of the family, where they're going to live, and it can be up to a year. So that's what their situation was now. You see, the daughters were alone in the house. Their intended, their fiancés are not in the house. But that doesn't mean these two girls never went out to be with their fiancés. I'm sure they did. Not only that, Lot sat in the gate of the city. He wasn't home. His wife had to go out shopping too. She wasn't home. Who knows what whoopee was going on with these two girls? I'm sure of it. And we'll see that you'll see that at the end of the chapter how that plays out. Okay. So anyhow, he tells them, take my daughters instead, which is just inconceivable. Imagine Avram sacrificing his daughters to an angry mob, to a sex-crazed mob. Ridiculous. Okay, verse 9. Vayomru, gesh hala vayom rumus. And they said, stand back. He said, and they said, stand back. The crowd says to Lot, Vayomru, and they said, Ha'echad ba lagur v'yishpod shafot. This guy, meaning Lot, came in to live with us, and he's going to now play the judge. He's now judging us. Ata nara lecha mehem. Now we're going to deal worse with you. We're going to deal worse with you, with Lot. And v'yiftru ba'ish belot ma'od v'yagashu lishbar hadelet. And they pushed up against Lot and drew near to break down the door. Verse 10. V'yishlachu hanashim, that the men put forth et yadam, their hand, v'yaviu et Lot alehem habaita, and they brought Lot to them into the house. I think this is one of the most graphic scenes in the whole Chumash. Who cannot picture this in his mind? The door opens, this big angel's hand grabs Lot by the shirt collar and pulls him inside and slams the door on these guys. I mean, this is a great scene in a movie. By the way, if you were to do a movie of Lot, you know who I would cast as Lot? Jim Carrey.
That's a good casting.
Isn't it a good casting? Because he can be such a jerk, but he can also be very evil. He's been in a couple of movies where he was really quite evil. The Mask. Okay. So they put, and they shut the door. So they brought them into the house and he shut the door. Verse 11. The et hanoshim asher petach habayis, and the men that were at the door of the house, hiku the son verum. They struck them with blindness. The angels caused all these people, makatim ba'ad gadol, from the little ones to the big ones, vayilu limtso hapetach, and so they struggled to find the door. 12. V'yomru hanoshim elot ad mi lecha po hachat. Who else? Do you have any others here? In other words, besides you, your wife, and the two daughters. Chatan, a son-in-law, uvanov, ubenotov, and your son, you have sons and daughters. V'chol asher lecha ba'ir, and whoever else you have in the city. Now, this is very important, and this is a good lesson, that you've got to be very careful with the words of the Torah, very specific. He doesn't call them angels here, but Yomer Hanashim, he calls them men here. The two angels he calls men. Often angels are called men, but here he calls them men. In the first verse, he called them angels. And Rashi says here that they had, at this point, they were like men. In other words, as angels, they would have known exactly who's in the city, who exactly is they have besides these two daughters. Do they have any sons? There is an opinion that they had two other daughters who were married, by the way, living in the town. But they're asking him, who do you have here? They didn't know, because Hashem sometimes gives the angels the power to know everything, or sometimes he withholds it. At this point, he withheld it. Anyhow, they said, who do you have out in the city? Hotzi min hamakom. Bring them out of the place. In other words, tell them to get out of Sodom. Verse 13. Ki mashchitim anachnu et hamakom hazeh, because we are going to destroy this place. Ki nodla tzakatam et pnei Hashem yishlachenu Hashem l'shachata. So because the cry, the screaming of these people is very great before Hashem, and he sent us to destroy it. Verse 14. Vayetze Lot v'yadaber el hachatonov. And Lot went out. This is very important. They weren't in the house. For years I thought that they were there in the house. No, it says Lot went out of the house at this point. And it was, I guess, relatively safe. They had been struggling within their blindness, so they probably were hightailing it to go take care of themselves and get back to the home because they were in trouble. They were blind. So Lot went out, And V'yadaber el Chatanov, and he spoke to his two sons-in-law, and they obviously didn't live together, so he had to go to the house of one. They probably each were living with their family. I'm sure these were young people. So he went to one, and then he went to the other, and he spoke to his two sons-in-law, Lokich Banov, who had taken, which is a word for marry, who had married his daughters. As I said, this was only the first phase of the marriage. This was only the engagement. V'yomer, and he said, Kuma tzu'u min hamakam hazeh, get up and get out of this place. Ki mashchit Hashem et ha'ir, because Hashem is about to destroy the city. Vayhi k'matzachek be'enei chatonov. But he seemed like a fool, somebody who's a joker. He couldn't be serious. They just rejected what he was saying. And he spent some good time trying to convince them, get out of here to save your lives. But they wouldn't hear of it, and he dejected. He went away. He failed. He did not. They didn't take his advice. Verse 15. V'kamo ashachar Allah yatziu hamalachim belot lemor. And when the morning arose, the early morning, and the angels took out Lot, saying, "Kum kach et ishtecha." The et shtei banotav hanimtzot, arise and take your wife and the two daughters that are found here. Pen tisafeh ba'avon ha'ir, lest you be swept away in the sins of this city. There's something I wanted to say here. Oh, yes, it says when the morning arose. There's a certain time in the morning, I'm sure we've all seen it, where you can see both the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time. It's like early morning, there's still the moon is there, and the sun is just broken over the horizon. That was this time. And it was done by Hashem, a purpose that it had to be now, so that when it was be destroyed, if it was daytime, the worshipers of the sun would say the sun did it. And if it was destroyed at night, they would say, the sun didn't have the strength to prevent this, the moon did it. So it wanted both, so neither one could say that they're God, because they were all idol worshippers as well as perverts. They made it this way so they couldn't say this. The 16, but he lingered. He delayed, love delayed. Ziku Hanoshim biyadu, and the men grabbed the hold of his hand, ubiyad ishto, and the hand of his wife, ubiyad shtei benotov, and the hands of his two daughters, behemlat Hashem alav, Hashem being merciful unto them, vayotzi uhu v'yanahuhu mechutz la'ir, and they took them by the hand and they brought them out and set them outside the city. Now, why was he lingering? The opinion, I believe it's the Ramban. I'm not sure of this. One of the main commentators says the reason he was lingering is the obvious. He was trying to gather together as much of his wealth as he could take with him, because he was going out with nothing but the shirt on his back. So he had wealth, and it might have been under a floorboard. It might have been in a wall. You know, you got a city full of crooks. You got a city full of really bad people, and they're going to know he's wealthy. It was no secret that he was wealthy. He was a well-known figure. So he had to probably dig it out of the walls. He had gold and jewels, whatever was wealth. He was putting together his wealth, and I'm sure, as we're going to see later, it's my opinion anyway, that he did manage to get to save some of it, and whatever he had in his shoulder bag and a purse. But anyhow, but they said, this is long enough. We got to get out of here, and they grab him and they take him outside. Verse 17. Vayhi kahotziam otam v'chutza, and when they had taken them outside, vayomer, had he said. No, it was one of them. Vayomer, he said, but the he is one of the two angels, said, Himalet al nafshecha, escape for your life. Al tabit acharecha, The al ta'mod b'chol hakika. Do not look behind you, and do not hang around. Don't stand around in this plain, this open area just outside the city. Hahara ha'yimalet. Escape to the mountain. Pen tisafa. Unless otherwise you're going to be swept away. So why did he tell them not to look back? A lot of people want to say because what was going to happen, it was going to be like an atomic explosion. And if you ever seen pictures, God forbid, of an atomic explosion, the force of the wind and everything, it blows the dirt and everything and penetrates into everything. And that's what was going to happen here. That's not correct. That vision is not correct. First of all, if that were to happen, we know what's coming next. You know who turned around. Everybody would have been swept away. It wouldn't have been just one person, first of all. And second of all, this was not an atomic explosion. This came from heaven. This was a divine, this fire and brimstone was not earthly. This came from above to below, so it didn't have to sweep anything away. It did what it did. Okay. So, and Lot answers them when he says, don't look, he's answering them about escaping to the mountain. He doesn't want to escape to the mountain. 18. But Yomer Lot, Alehem, Lot says to them, Al na Adoni, oh no, please, my Lord. 19. Hine na motza avdecha chen beinecha. Behold, now your servant has found grace in your eyes. V'tagdel chastecha. So increase your mercy. Asher asita imadi, that you have done with me. L'chayot et nafshi, in saving my life. V'anochi lo uchal l'himalet hahara pen tidbakeni hara. I cannot escape the mountain, or otherwise the evil is going to overtake me, umati, and I'm going to die. Why did he say this? Why did he say that escaping to the mountain is going to cause the evil to overtake me and I die? You know who was on the mountain? Abraham was on the mountain. Abraham was in this area on the mountain, but not here, but further away. And he said, if he, in Sodom, this is also what the commentator said, what Rashi says. In Sodom, he looks pretty good compared to them. But compared to Abraham, he's going to look like the worst possible wicked person. So he's going to be saved out of the city of Sodom because he's so much more righteous than the Sodomites. But compared to Abraham, his evil is going to show. And he feared he's going to be then destroyed by Hashem for being evil. So he says, so therefore, I can't go up to that mountain or I'm going to die. So verse 20, V'hine na ha'ir hazod karava l'nushama. Behold, now there is a city who's very close to here. Let us run to it. V'hi mitzar. It's a little one, it's a little city. Imalta na shama. Let me escape there. Hello, mitzar. Is this not a little city? Let the chi nafshi, and let my soul live. Let me run to this little city and let my soul live. Now, with this little city called Tsar, it's not Zohar. Tsar. Tsar is a word for you have the Bechor and the Tzair. You have the firstborn and the younger one. This was Leah and Rachel, the first and the younger one. This city wasn't little in size; it was little in age. It was founded after the other 4 cities that were going to be destroyed. Therefore, its full measure of sin had not been completed. And it was not, and so Lot was saying to them, isn't this a little city? Isn't this a young city? I can be saved here. You can save this city. They're not ready to be destroyed yet. So let me run there. I'll be safe there. 21. Vayomer Elav, and he said to him, Hine nashati, this is one of the angels again. Nasati panecha, see, I have accepted you. Gam l'davar hazeh, even for this. So this is obviously Gabriel talking. Gam l'davar hazeh, even for this. Levilti hafchi et ha'ir asher dibarta. I will not overthrow the city in which you're spoken. This is Gabriel's mistake. Gabriel made a mistake here. You realize what his mistake is? His mistake is he's saying, I will not do it. He's saying, this is in my power to make a decision to save you. And it's my power to overthrow the city. And angels don't do, nobody should do this with Hashem. Everybody gets in trouble when you do this in Hashem. And you say, it's I who am the doer. Hashem is always the doer. And particularly with angels, they are simply messengers. They are shluchim. They are emissaries of God. They don't do anything on their own, unless he gives them specific latitude. So by saying this, he made a mistake. So what does he say? Verse 22, to rectify it. Maher himolet shama. Okay, so go and escape there. Go to that little city that you're asking about. Ki lo uchal le'aso davar ad bo'acha shama. Because I am not able to do anything until you escape there. In other words, he backtracked right now and said and admitted that Hashem was the boss. He says, I am not able to do anything until you go there. In other words, I've been given instructions. Yes, you can go to that city, but it isn't, not like I said, it's not I who's giving you permission there. It's Hashem who gave me the permission to give you permission to go there. Al Kain Kara Shem Ha'ir Tzoar. And therefore the name of the city is Tzoar, which means young, little, the little one. 23. Hashemesh yatsa al haaretz belot ba tzara. And the sun was risen upon the earth when Lot came to Zor. 24, this is it. V'Hashem himtir al Sodom v'al Amorah. And Hashem caused it to rain upon Sodom and Gomorrah. Nofrit v'esh, brimstone and fire, me'et Hashem, min Hashemayim, from before the Lord out of heaven. 25. V'yafoch et ha'ir ha'arim ha'el ve'et kol hakika. And he turned over, and completely destroyed those cities and the whole plain. Ve'et kol yoshvei ha'arim, and all the inhabitants of those cities, v'tzemach ha'dasha, and everything that grew on the ground. I don't know if today, where this is today. Geographically where this area is. It's south of the Dead Sea. It's just south of the Dead Sea. The city in that general area to the modern city is Arad, and things don't grow there till this day. I think in Israel, through their modern techniques of agriculture, they have caused some things to grow there, but basically they grow there. I don't know if any of you have ever been up to Crater Lake in South Oregon, but I was there many years ago, and it was formed by a volcano, a monstrous volcanic eruption, and the lake formed in the crater of that volcano, and nothing around there for miles will grow, even to this day, hundreds of years later. Nothing will grow. The soil is so parched, so dead, it's like a desert. Okay. 26. V'tabet ishto me'acharav v'atehi netziv melach. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became turned into a pillar of salt. I mean, this is one of the maybe most famous things to think. So why did this happen? Why did this happen? It wasn't like people say that she got blasted from all this. No, what it was, did I mention this already? What it was is that they were wicked, but they were saved in the merit of Abraham. Being wicked, they did not have the right to look upon the destruction of the wicked. A righteous person would have been able to, not that you necessarily want to, but she had no right to look. She had no right to see this. That's why he told all of them, do not look back. Because if you do, you're going to be included in the destruction because you're really no better than they. And they didn't look back, and she did, and that's what happened to her. And that's why she was turned into a pillar of salt. By the way, there's a thing called Sodom salt. I don't know if you ever heard of this. You never heard of Sodom salt? Do you know the custom in a Orthodox Jewish meal, at the end of the meal, rinse their fingertips with water? Have you ever seen this?
Yes.
So this is to remove Sodom salt. This is the source of it. They used to use a salt from this part of Israel called Sodom salt, and it isn't NaCl, isn't our sodium chloride, isn't our regular pure table salt. It had chemicals mixed in it that if you rubbed your eyes with it, it would blind you, which is damage your eyes at least. So that's where the custom arose from, to clean your fingertips at the end of the meal, because unconsciously people rub their eyes with their fingers. Okay, so we don't have that salt anymore, but still the custom remains. Not everybody does it. Okay, 27. Now we're back to Abraham for two verses, 3 verses. V'yash came Abraham baboker el hamakam asher amad sham et pnei Hashem. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he had stood before Hashem. When he was in the beginning of the chapter, when he negotiates with Hashem to try and save the people of the city, he now got up early in the morning and stood where he was when he was doing this with Hashem, when he was negotiating with Hashem. 28. V'yashkev al pnei Sodom v'Amorah, and he looked out towards Sodom and Gomorrah, v'al kol pnei haaretz hakikar, and all the land of this kikar. Kikar is really a circle, but in this case it means a plain, the open plain level area. V'yar, and behold, and he beheld, v'hine ala kitar haaretz kitar hakivshon, and the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. By the way, this word kitar is the same root word as ketoret, the incense in the Beit HaMikdash. It's ketoret, kitar. It means a burning. Well, what happens with incense? What happened here? It means burning. It's also the name of Abraham's second wife, who people say is Hagar, was Keturah. And they want to say that, a lot of the commentaries want to say that is because her deeds were as sweet as incense. She smelled as sweet incense, called Keturah. I think that's a mistake, because what it isn't that. In Aramaic, the word Keturah means binding, kesher in Hebrew, kesher. And why she's called Keturah is that she remained bound to Abraham for all the years that she was away from him. She never was with another man, and he took her back. She became his wife after Sarah passed away. Anyhow, it's machlok. There's different opinions. Both could be right. Okay, both are right. Okay, 29. Vayehi b'shachet Elohim et Orei Hakikar v'yizkar Elohim et Abraham. And it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain that God remembered Abraham. Not that God forgets, and he doesn't even have to ever call to mind something, but it was a focus. At this moment, he focused on Abraham. He needed to do that in order to help Lot, because if he looked at Lot's through. So by looking at Abraham, who loves Lot, or at least considers himself responsible, he's his uncle, responsible for him. So Yishalach et Lot mitoch ha'hefecha b'hafoch et ha'orim asher yoshav behen Lot. And he had sent Lot out of the midst of the destroyed cities, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. By the way, just a little side note, the gematria, the numerical value of Lot, is the same as Adam, 45. Adam is 45 and Lot is 45. So Lot is an essential Adam, and there are two types called Adam. There's Adam the Kedusha and Adam Belial. There's the holy man and there's the worthless man. And here you have them with Abraham and Lot. Abraham is the essence of the holy man. There wasn't a greater man. I mean, you can play baseball cards with the great Torah people. Who's better? Moses is greater, or David is greater, and so forth. Nobody's greater than Abraham. Moses was a greater prophet. He was greater this, but Abraham was, great. If there was a holy man, it's Abraham. He began the rectification of the sin of Adam. Lot, on the other hand, is Adam Belial, which means worthless. It means somebody who has nothing. So, okay. So, in verse 30, V'yal Lot mitzoar, v'yeshiv bahar, u'shtei b'nosav imo, ki yorei l'shevet b'tzoar. For they were afraid, so Lot went up out of Zohar, and dwelt in the mountain with his two daughters, for he feared to dwell in Zohar, v'yeshiv b'mayra, he u'shtei b'notav. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters. Now all that it says here, you've got to be very careful with. All the Torah says here is that he was afraid to live in Zohar. Zohar was not touched. Zohar was okay. The people were there. Everybody who was there lived. But they were afraid. He said, listen, he knew what this was. He knew that their original intent was to destroy it. He negotiated with the angels that it should be saved. And so he says he's afraid to live there. Let's get out of here and go up to the mountain now that we can see it's over there and we don't know when this is going to blow up. Let's go. Now, very important, because now it's the daughters are speaking, not the Torah. 31. Vatomer habechira. And the firstborn said, El HaTzeira. Here's the word, the same word as Tzohar, the same word as the name of the. So the firstborn was said to the young one, the Tzeira, Avinu Zaken, our father is old. The ish ein ba'aretz lavo alenu, and there is not a man on the earth to come to us, kederach kol haaretz, in the manner of all the earth. In other words, we're not going to find husbands. It's the end of mankind. Our father is old. There's nobody else. And the Torah is not saying this. She's saying this. This is baloney. They know that's not true. They've just been there. There are people there. They were there for a day. There are people there. They are looking for an excuse. 32. L'cha nashka et avinu yayin v'nishkava imo. Let's make our father drink wine, and we will lie down with him. V'nechayeh avinu zora, that we may preserve the seed of our father. This is not true words. This is by the way, I have to bracket this. This is my opinion. There are many, many opinions about what's going on here. Now, this is one of the more hidden, darker pages of the Torah right now, what's going on here. But it's inconceivable for me to think that they really thought this, because they have no basis to think this. They were in a city that was spared. They're afraid he was afraid it's going to be destroyed. But when they left it, after having been there for so many hours at least, they see it wasn't destroyed. There are people there. So I believe that this is just a justification for doing what they really wanted to do. Where they're saying, our mother's not here. our husbands to be are not here. There's nobody here. We can go have a party. And so what do they say? 33. Kashkena et avihem yayin, and they made their father drink wine that night, b'layla hahu, that night. Vayavu habachira v'tishkav et aviha v'lo yada, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he knew not when she lay down, bishchava, when she and when she rose. Now this is the words of the Torah saying this. She's not saying it. In other words, the Torah is acquitting him. He is not to be held guilty for this. Torah, not she saying that. The Torah is saying he didn't know what was going on there. He got so drunk, he had no clue what was going on. After all, he was emotionally pretty messed up right now anyway. I mean, just saw his wife turn the pillar of salt, just saw the world, so much of the world destroyed. And she got him good and drunk. He didn't know what's going on. I mean, how many, I don't want to get it. Kids were, okay, anyway. So I want to stop here for 1 second and do a little departure. Wine. This is the 4th chapter. This is the 4th parsha of the Torah. In all 4 of these parshas, wine is mentioned. Wine is a factor. Wine is very, very important. And I'll tell you what these 4 were. In the very first one in Genesis, the primary opinion of most of the authorities, most of the big scholars, is that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was a grapevine. It's not an apple. And what they did, what Adam and Eve did, is that they ate, but it was in the Garden of Eden, and the fruit became wine immediately. It was a miraculous thing, the formation of this wine. And what they did is they drank it in a profane manner and got drunk. So they opened their eyes. And there was only 3 hours, had they waited until Shabbat, which was 3 hours away, and sanctified the Shabbat with a cup of wine as we do today, the Mashiach would have come then and the world would have been perfected right on the spot. But they blew it. Second parsha, Noah. We know wine was a very big problem in Noah too. After he was saved, the first thing he did when he landed is he planted a vineyard. And they give him a lot of trouble. The sages really knocked Noah on the head for doing this. He says, this is not what he should have been doing. He's not, the whole world is just destroyed and you're making whoopee. He says, this is no good. He says, but the Kabbalists see it a little differently. They say, no, what he was trying to do was rectify the sin of Adam. That's why he planted them. He was going to be able to utilize it in a holy way. And he failed. And out of this came a lot of problems. He cursed Canaan, and things were not as they should have been from that point forward because of this. Now the next parsha, last parsha, Lech Lecha, wine is there again. And I want to go back to Melchizedek and Abraham. He did it right. Melchizedek did it right. He brought wine and bread out to resuscitate, to strengthen the exhausted troops, and it was done in a holy manner because he was a holy man. It was the first time wine is seen as a positive thing. And now here again, we're seeing it again as a negative thing, as a destruction. So I want to say, and this isn't mine, I'm saying, and this is said, that wine is the essence of Torah Judaism. The very thing, we take the very thing that brought the destruction of man and can bring the destruction of men today and do, alcoholism, etc., and use it for the opposite, sanctity. So on Friday night and on all the holidays, and after beginning Shabbos and when Shabbos goes out, both, we sanctify the day on a cup of wine. we make a blessing over the wine and use it as a sign of sanctity. And I don't know, we have this custom, the Sephardim have this custom, Kabbalists have the custom, is that when we make the blessing on the cup of wine to bring in the Shabbos, or to at the end to take out the Shabbos in Havdalah, when just before the person says, "Let us bless," everybody in the room says "L'chaim," to life, as opposed to the opposite, which wine can be. And this is really what Torah Judaism is all about. Is the primary thing, is taking what exists in the world and raising it up to sanctify God. Okay. So anyhow, she lay down, and 34. Vayhi memacharat v'tomer habachira, and it came to pass in the next day that the firstborn said to the Yomer habachira el hatzira, that the firstborn said to the younger one, Hein shachavti emesh et avi. Last night I lay with our father. V'nashkenu yayin. Let us make him drink wine. Gam halayla. And also this night. And you, Loi shichvi imo, and you will lie with him. V'nachya ma'avinu zora, that we may preserve the seed of our father. Let me ask you a question. Where did they get the wine? They weren't bringing stuff from the house. They weren't bringing wine. I mean, as much as there was an opinion that it was waiting for them in this cave in the mountain, miraculously. No, they bought it in Soar. What's the problem? He had money, he had time, he had hours. There's another reason. They knew there were people there. People were doing business. They bought the wine and brought it with them. Okay, it's 35. The tashkena, and they made him to drink gam halayla hahu et avinu yayin. And that night also they made their father drink wine. V'takam hatzeira v'tishka vimo, and the young one rose up and lay down and slept with him. V'lo yada b'shichva ubikuma, and he did not, against the Torah, saying, and he did not know when she lay down and when he rose up. Again, he really was innocent in this. A lot of people want to say, a lot of authorities want to say, he should have known by the second one already what was going on. But the Torah says he didn't. So he didn't. So, okay. 36. V'taharena, and thus shtei banot lot me'avihim, and thus both daughters were pregnant by their father. 37. V'taled habachira ben v'tikra shemo Moav, hu avi Moav, the same as the father of the Moabites. Her child is the father of the nation of Moab. Ad hayom, unto this day. V'hatzeira gam he yalda ben, and the young one also gave birth to a son. V'tikra shemo ben Ami, hu avi b'nei Ammon ad hayom. And this child that was born is the father of the children of the nation of Ammon until this day. So, you see, and also the commentators mention, the younger one, the older one was brazen. She was up front. In other words, she's saying, this child came from my father. The other one hid it a little bit. Says, this is from our people. Ben Ami, a child of our people, doesn't implicate the father. So this is really the end of the chapter. But what is the good? Now, let's go back to what I said in the very beginning. This Shlamazel is in the wrong place at the wrong time and does everything to mess up everything. He's just not a good guy. You know the good that comes out of this? Mashiach. Because Moab is the people of Ruth. So down the line, some, I don't know how many generations, some, let's say, this is 400 years before. This is probably maybe 800 years before. Huh? Did you hold up your hands, Ross? 10? It's 10 generations?
Yes. 10 generations, yes.
It's 10 generations. From Avram to Ruth. So to 10 generations to Ruth, and she's the great-great-grandmother of David, right?
Correct.
So out of this sinful, messed up, completely destructive situation comes David, which comes Mashiach. So again, Lot did nothing good, but out of him, I think you can say when the combination of in the merit of Abraham and the mercy of Hashem brought out of this union the Mashiach. So what do we learn from all of this? One other thing, very important thing. There's a book called The Path of the Righteous Gentile. I don't know if you heard of it. So very good book. I recommend it highly. If you look in the chapter 8 on sexual relations, it says, number 18, the children of Noah, which they were, are considered related only through the mother. Those on the father's side are not considered relatives. This means that a man's half-sister of the same father but of a different mother is not considered related to him and is permissible to him. That's a man's half-sister. His daughter, theoretically, technically, from the Torah itself, not including oral tradition or rabbinics, what Lot did was permitted. Now, it's considered that it isn't done because this was repulsive to people. This idea of a father having relations with his daughter is repulsive but it wasn't repulsive to these people. It wasn't repulsive to the Sodomites. They probably thrived on it. I'm sure it was not an unusual thing. So there's an argument in the Talmud. It's in Sanhedrin 58b, whether a Noahide is permitted to have a relationship with his daughter inasmuch as she is not considered his relative. The conclusion is that despite the fact that his daughter is not considered to be his relative, she is nonetheless forbidden because she is in the same category as the mother with a son, as a parent-child relationship, and therefore is forbidden because that's forbidden. Because people are going to say, well, if the father can have a relation with the daughter, so the mother can have a relation with the son. In order to stop that, it's forbidden. But technically, it's not forbidden, but it is forbidden. One of the reasons it was not forbidden, why was the reason, and this is a halacha, it's not a spiritual reason, this is a legal reason, why did they say that the father was not related to the child? Because in those Canaanite nations of very, very wicked and promiscuous people, you didn't know who the father was. Even if there was a man at home, even if they were married, they didn't know it was him. So you would have had a lot of problems if you would say that they're related to the father. Now today, we don't go like this. It's forbidden, simply forbidden. The father-daughter relationship is just as forbidden as the mother because it's a halakhic situation again, not a spiritual one. And so what do we learn from all this? I'll tell you what I take away from the whole story of Lot. Be careful of who your friends are. Be careful of who your neighbors are. Be careful where you live. Because there's the teaching at the very, very end of the Talmudic tractate of Sukkah that says, woe to the wicked and woe to his neighbor. And that isn't in all things. If he's a thief, you're not going to punish him. But in two things, idolatry and sexual perversion, it says Hashem doesn't punish only the one guy. Get away from him. And I'll tell you something. I should 1 second. In the book of Proverbs, the first chapter, the Mishlei. The first 9 verses of Mishlei, was written by King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived. God bestowed miraculously from heaven wisdom on him. For the first 9 verses, he speaks of the greatness of wisdom, the importance of wisdom for 9 verses. The 10th verse, he gives you the first instance of wisdom itself. And what does it say? My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us and lie in wait for blood, let us hide for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up like the grave, and the whole ones like those who descend into the pit. We will find all precious possessions. We will fill our houses with plunder. Cast your lot among us, and we will all have one purse. My son, do not go on that way with them. Restrain your foot from their path. The very first instance of wisdom that King Solomon teaches the people: be careful of who your friends are. Choose your friends carefully. Don't run with a pack of sinners. That's what I take away from this whole story, because up until the point when he was with Abraham, things were good for Lot. Very good, in fact. Everything went his way. I mean, he got captured. That's pretty horrible. But he had wealth. He had everything good. When he separated and he became part of this wicked community, things really went bad for him. And I think that's the lesson I want to take away from the story of Lot. That's basically it. I think we went over time a little bit.